Welcome to the Hangar Z podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicasts and in partnership with Vertical Valor magazine. In this two-part leadership series, Jack Schonely and I sat down with Clint Pulver, who's an Emmy Award winner, author, keynote speaker, pro drummer, and helicopter pilot, as well as a partner in the helicopter apparel company, Heli Life. During our conversation with Clint Pulver, we explore the vital role of effective leadership in the realms of public safety and aviation. Clint shares his inspiring journey from aspiring helicopter pilot to professional speaker and author, shedding light on the urgent need for transformative leadership training and its profound effect on organizational culture and employee retention. Drawing from his insightful Undercover Millennial research, highlighted in the book he wrote titled I Love It Here, Clint reveals a truth we all know too well, that employees often leave their bosses, not their jobs. During the conversation, we discussed the importance of mentorship over mere management and the power of genuine connection in leadership. Throughout this enlightening conversation, Clint tackles the common disconnect in leadership and the significance of time influence in fostering meaningful relationships. With a focus on positivity, recognition, and personal connection, Clint advocates for a leadership approach that enriches employees' lives and cultivates a culture of mentorship and engagement. We mentioned that Clint's a partner at Heli Life, which is the apparel brand designed for helicopter pilots, operators, maintenance crews, aviation enthusiasts, and everything in between. Heli Life is pilot-owned and operated with a design team that's worked incredibly hard to engineer and create the perfect gear and apparel that enhances the flying experience and love of aviation, while also providing comfort, style, and durability that lasts. All Hangar Z listeners can visit helilife.shop today and use the promo code HANGARZ, all one word, to receive 15% off their first order. Thank you to our sponsors, Metro Aviation, CNC Technologies, and Robinson Helicopters.
Welcome to the Hangar Z podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicasts. The Hangar Z podcast is the first and only podcast dedicated to promoting and exploring the personnel and equipment behind the missions in public safety aviation. Join your host, John Gray, Jeff Ratkovich, and Jack Schonely.
Still southbound, skidding to a stop. Stand by here. Looks like they're getting ready to bail. Heads up, guys, bailing. Okay, the guy, he's running through the house, jumping the fence, through the shotgun, through something out. Grabbing the shotgun. Don't go over that fence. Don't go over that fence. Grab the shotgun again. He is armed. Stay there. Hold your position.
4 on the stop. You're in custody.
Good advising code 4 on the stop.
One thing you talked about was finding solutions. Mr. Jensen found two solutions to a problem that everyone else identified as a problem. You know, he identified the fact that you could be a drummer, and you did become that. And as I'm reading, you're describing how you're tapping your head and rubbing your belly. That's something I could never do. It was really frustrating to me. Still can't do it. That's why it was so hard for me to become a helicopter pilot, because you essentially have to do that, right?
Yeah.
I struggled so much learning how to hover, and I described it as that, tapping your head and rubbing your belly is so hard for my brain to do that. But drummers and helicopter pilots, I feel like, have that innate ability naturally to do those two different things. Each limb is doing something different, just like when you're flying a helicopter.
Totally.
So Mr. Jensen found a helicopter pilot and he found a drummer.
Yeah.
Pretty interesting when you look back at that.
How did hovering go for you, Clint? I'm curious. Did you pick up on it quickly, or did it take a long time? What was it like? Because hovering that's what it's all about. Let's face it. That is
Totally.
the thing. How did it go for you? I'm curious.
I always say this cautiously because some people didn't, have struggle with it. And I'm not a perfect pilot or even close to that. And I'm always learning. But I hovered on my second lesson. Because I do. And I do. Because of drums, because of music, because of the independence of my left hand can just work on its own.
Yeah.
And my feet. And once I got that feel of, I don't know, my brain just...
That's incredible.
That's
incredible. Now, that just shows, John, just so you know, that just shows you that I was a poor drummer, because I was hovering in a football. I mean, I needed a football field to hover in for a lot of hours. It did not come naturally, but it does not surprise me that you just answered that way, Clint, that it came quickly, because drumming is really, if you're a really talented drummer and you were a professional drummer, it really does require so many of the same, not exactly skills, but you know what I mean, concepts of doing multiple things at once, hands, feet, doing different things, as opposed to just sitting there like this and going with two hands, bump, bump. Well, anybody can do that.
That's right.
But
I could do that.
Yeah, you could do, but you couldn't do it. But you can do a paradiddle. I mean, that's good.
Drums are such a tactile instrument. Like, but here's the weird thing. Like, so I struggle to read music.
Yeah.
Like I struggle to like something telling me like what I need to do. Like I feel it. And helicopters are that. Like it is you feel that machine. I know where that wind's coming from. I know what, it's a feeling type of and I think that the synergy between that, because drums, a really good drummer, our job is to just feel the music and to ultimately help the audience feel a certain way. Like we're the driving force. Like there's a reason why we call it a drum throne, right? Like you sit on the throne and you run the show. You command the audience. Like we control the tempo. We control the vibe. We control where you go based off of that rhythm, that feeling that we create. And it's an intoxicating, very fun thing, just like flying is. It's
Off the leadership topic, if I may, John, I have to know, because I thought about it while I was reading your book. Who are your top three drummers, Clint?
It's a great question.
It's a tough one. I know it's going to be tough for you, but maybe not. Maybe you know.
There's always the classics of Neil Peart, right? John Bonham.
Oh yeah.
Buddy Rich.
Yes.
Like your iconic, just like the guys and the gals. There's some great female drummers as well. But for me, some of the drummers that I love that maybe people have never even heard of, but in the drumming world, like we know who they are. Like they are shredders, like amazing drummers. They might not have been famous or world renowned, but Simon Phillips was the drummer for Toto. He replaced
he's amazing.
Yeah, when Jeff passed away, his sound, I fell in love with his sound at the age of like maybe 10 or 11 after the Mr. Jensen story, when I really started to listening to drummers. The Tama Star Classic Maple sound of his drums on the Minefield album of Toto. I'll never forget it. I fell in love with Simon Phillips. Eric Moore, he is a gospel drummer, a gospel chops drummer. And dude, that guy is like Jesus with sticks. What he does and how he does it is just mind blowing. And his sound, I have also fallen in love with. Also, there's even drummers like, the drummer for Slipknot, like these drummers that so much of drumming too is telling a story. And, drums are such a tribal, almost primitive instrument that people that get into it and like through dynamics and through energy and through your face, like they tell a story. Dude, I tell you that to Charlie Adams. He's the drummer for Yanni when Yanni was touring, like Yanni, like the classical piano. Charlie Adams, the way he would do a drum solo. If you were to watch me do a drum solo, and if you knew Charlie, you would say that's
who you look after. Yeah,
Brent is influenced through Charlie because he just took people for a ride. It's about an experience. It's about taking people on the journey. That, like, this as pilot, like it's fun to fly. It's really fun to take somebody flying. It's fun to share the gift of flight. And music for me is when I can, because of what I'm doing, that somebody might, for a moment forget about the stress of life, and for a moment be caught up in a moment that fills their heart. Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Good. I had to know. I'm sorry, John.
No.
I had to know because and it's so funny because you named Bonham, Buddy Rich, Neil Peart. Those are in my top three, and then Stuart Copeland. I really am a big Stuart Copeland guy too.
He's amazing.
But, so I knew you would. I knew it would be interesting to get that from you. Back to you, John.
Great.
Well, it's funny as you guys are,
now.
As you guys are talking about that, I'm thinking about who my musical influence would be, and I think it'd be Steve Martin in the Jerk. Have you guys seen the Jerk? He's got no rhythm, and that's why I was so bad at hovering.
That's good.
But one thing I want to talk about that I found really interesting, looking at the YouTube videos that you've got, I looked at some of the professional speaking you do, and you incorporate drums and drumming into the conferences that you're that you're a part of. Can you talk about that and the experience that folks have as a part of that audience?
Yeah, when we come into an event and do a leadership training or any type of development, my goal is not to be a keynote speaker. My goal is to provide an experience where people are learning by doing. It's not a death by PowerPoint thing. This is full immersive engagement. I always strive to never be predictable in my keynotes, right? Like keep the audience engaged. They never know what's coming. I tell the Mr. Jensen story, third person. They have no idea that I'm the kid in the story. And then we reveal the drums from behind stage. And then I reveal that I'm the kid, and we sit down and I rock the house for 7 minutes, this epic drum solo. And it shows leaders the power of influence. It's one thing to talk about it. It's another thing to see it.
Yeah.
And then in a matter of 2 minutes, we transform that whole room into a live drumline experience where I teach my research and the things that I've learned as the Undercover Millennial to our audiences, but they're learning by doing. They fall apart. They see how difficult it is, right? Leadership is hard. But through small, little, simple changes done consistently over a long period of time, it changes everything. And at the end, what was once chaos becomes beautiful. And they create rhythm, they create influence, they create energy and movement and direction as a team. And it's just, there's nothing else like it. And I'm so grateful and blessed to be able to do it. It's kind of a weird job, but I absolutely love it.
Yeah, it's so cool.
It's extremely unique. When everybody's out there with their drumsticks and you're up front, and it's just very unique, and it just connects in a very unusual way that makes sense, and it connects with the Mr. Jensen story perfectly, and how that changed your life. It changed your life dramatically. Who knows? What if Mr. Jensen? Here, I'll ask you, Clint. What if Mr. Jensen doesn't pull out drumsticks that day?
Yeah.
Who knows where you're at,
100%.
right? I mean, who knows what you're doing, what job you have, how you're affecting other people. That was truly a life-changing moment.
And that's what leaders get to do. Like that is the hope that through, these experiences that it maybe most people, leaders know that to some extent, but we sometimes forget. And it's just reminding a leader that like, oh my gosh, like, okay, this is what it's about. And I get to do this. And how cool is that? And the thought of, because I might say the right thing at the right time, or I did something for somebody in this moment, that it could change the course of forever. I believe that.
Yeah.
I believe that. Like
I do too.
Are beautiful storytellers, not in the stories that they tell, but in the stories that they help others write.
Yeah.
And that is so cool.
Yeah.
That's what it's about.
Going back to your videos, showing the folks in the audience drumming, you see on all their faces, they're engaged, they're smiling, they're laughing. And I think of, my experience that even with keynote speakers, a lot of times you're looking at the audience and half of them are their heads buried in their phone.
That's right.
Didn't see that with what I'm looking at with you.
Yeah.
That level of engagement's huge. You talked about through that. One thing that's important I want to touch on, the small things. We've talked about the small things already, but I want to go back to that. Talked about words of praise. And I want to get into praise and my vision for that in leadership and in public safety aviation. But there's a quote in there. I'll start with this. Then it was your mom that talked about this in the book. She writes, or you say, she says, little by little, those small casual conversations or thoughtful words of encouragement will become the big things. Loyalty, devotion, respect. You may not remember the little things you do, but the people will, and they'll never forget you for it. So again, simplicity, I think, is the most effective thing a lot of times. I think people envision being a good leader means you have to do all these grandiose things. Like, no, you don't have to. Do the small things well. Execute those little tiny things that are kind of simple. They seem simple, and people will remember you forever for that.
Totally.
So that kind of leads into words of praise and written accommodations.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of people say in positions of leadership in law enforcement, why should I acknowledge somebody for doing a job they're getting paid to do? Like, it blows my mind to hear people say that in positions of leadership.
Heard it thousands of times in police work.
We'll debrief an incident where an aircrew did something phenomenally well, potentially even saved lives. And I'll be like, hey, we should write this crew up for an accommodation. Like, nah, it's just their job. Like, are you kidding me? There's so much value in writing an accommodation for somebody, for the person you're leading, the mentor that you're being for that person. You're potentially providing them with something that's going to hang on their wall for the rest of their life.
Yep.
Think about how important that is for that person. And selfishly, for that leader, not only is that person going to benefit, that the person who executed that job is going to benefit from receiving that accommodation, but that accommodation is going to go to the chief of police, your captain, and the whole chain of command. So they're going to see not only the work that this person did, but that person's a reflection of you as a leader and what you're doing within that particular department of your program. So it's beneficial in so many ways. I just don't understand why it's so challenging for folks to get outside of the mindset of, well, that's what they're paid to do. Any insight, Clint, on that? Thank you to our sponsor, Metro Aviation. Metro Aviation, the world's largest family-owned air medical operator, offers comprehensive aircraft services with 160 plus aircraft in over 25 states. The Completion Center installs medical and law enforcement kits and avionics, serving diverse aviation needs including offshore, utility, VIP, and corporate sectors.
I think it's the mentality that you have to remember these are people, not just employees. People. And when you look at them, when you look at people as an employee, then you see them as, yeah, you get paid. Like, you only work 4 days. Like, come on. Like, I give you enough. We provide health care and benefits. And we did that Christmas party last year. Like be happy. Like, you have to remember that they're people, and every person is asking the question, let me know when it gets to the part about me. I did undercover research in a dental chain. This is a really cool story. This dental clinic had some of the highest retention levels in an industry where retention is not always the greatest. Like think about the dental industry, like high even suicide rates. Like, you're sucking blood and spit, and nobody really wants to see you. And this manager, her name was Becky, and Becky, when I would go in undercover and I'd say, why do you like to work here? What keeps you here? All the hygienists would talk about Becky. Now, dental hygiene is interesting because she was paying them fairly, a fair wage. Couldn't necessarily pay them more. She also couldn't promote them. Like, unless they went to dental school, there is no like higher step. There is no like inner, channel of like moving up the ladder. But she realized, and this is really cool because I went to Becky after doing all the undercover research and I said, Becky, who are you and what are you doing? Because it's working. And she listed off many different things, but one thing that I always remembered is she said, Clint, I realized I couldn't pay them more. I couldn't promote them, but I could help them get out of debt. And I was like, what? And she goes, one of the best things I've ever done, and it was one of the things that the employees talked about. She goes, I gave everybody the opportunity that wanted to. We bought the program, Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University.
Love that.
And she said, we enrolled everybody in Dave Ramsey's course that wanted to be a part of it. And 16 of those dental hygienists with their families had completely paid their homes off because of that.
Wow. Jeez.
Wow. That's amazing.
Like, and the point is not you to hear that story and go, well, we can't afford Dave Ramsey's course. Or no. The point is, look at how she helped create better people, not just employees. An environment where people go home better moms, better dads. I had an individual in the public safety world here out at the Utah Highway Patrol. Like, they call parents. They write letters to the mom and dad when somebody does something amazing. They pick up the phone. They find out through whatever they need to do to find the number, and they call and they go, I just need to thank you for the young woman and the son that you raised and what they've done. And if you could see how they care for people and the good that they do and the lives that they're saving, like, that was his mantra. That's what he did. And like, people never forget that. And when mom calls that day and says, you'll never forget when the captain called me and what he said, and I just love you. And I'm so like, that's the stuff. That's the like, how do we create better? It's needed. It's important. People talk about it. People, I don't know. God, you'll be surrounded by two things at the end of your service in this industry. You'll be surrounded by the woulda, shouldas, and the couldas, or you'll be surrounded by the do it, did it, done it's. And why not? Why not be surrounded with things that add positivity and goodness and the potential and worth of somebody? Like, if you don't want to do that, like, leave. Like, go find something else. Like, you're in the people business. This is a part of the job.
Yeah, leadership is the people business. Gosh, Dave Ramsey's near and dear to my heart, and Jack's laughing as you're describing that because
John loves Dave Ramsey. He's one of his heroes.
Yeah, program changed my life.
Totally.
And I think one of the things he says that I love, and it kind of lends to what we're talking about, is talking about common sense and how it's so uncommon. It's a superpower. A lot of the things that we're talking about don't seem like they're crazy. It's really common sense. But you execute the things that are common and sensical, and it all of a sudden becomes a superpower, and people are wanting to follow you. So I think when you look at Becky, she is public safety aviation in a lot of ways. In public safety aviation, we have an issue with the ladder. You bring aviation and public safety together. You're two different programs in two different hierarchies. You're trying to blend the two. Well, what happens is law enforcement chain of command overtakes the kind of the aviation chain of command, and you're kind of forced into this role of, I can't promote because if I promote, then I'm out of the program.
That's right.
So people are kind of, for lack of a better term, stuck in the career ladder by choice because you love what you're doing.
Yep.
But essentially, we're Becky, right? Like we can't get paid more. We can't pay our folks more because the only way we can do that is to promote them. So how do we enrich their lives? I love that idea of enriching someone's life. That's crazy.
We have to do that. We have to create, because too many companies, too many other industries are learning how to do that really well. And that's where your people are going. Like, we have to learn how to do that. We have to make room for that. And if you don't want to, if you don't, they get paid. If you want to have that mentality, then have fun being a solo entrepreneur, or be okay with the revolving door of turnover that costs your organization thousands and thousands of dollars. The toxicity, just the lack of just loyalty in a team.
Yeah.
Then that's what will happen.
Jack, I want to go back to you on the idea of accommodations and verbal praise, because every agency is different and every leader is different as far as what they do and how they do that. Is that something that you saw within LAPD and in aviation? And if so, how what was the effect of that?
Absolutely saw it. And the effect of it is it trickles down for morale. And on one hand, what they're saying, you said the quote earlier, John, well, they're getting paid. That's what you get paid to do. That's correct. It is what I'm getting paid to do. However, there are times when everybody goes a little bit above and beyond or they do it perfectly under a certain set of circumstances, where I'm expected to do this task, but now you add bad weather to that task. That just changed that task. And that's what it just seemed to get slipped through the cracks. And there were very few people that got commendations at air support. And it was true in canine too, where it was just kind of expected of you. I've heard it in the military. We've had people from Special Operations Aviation Regiment on the Task Force 160 pilots, best helicopter pilots on the planet. They do heroic things on almost every mission. Do they get as many medals and commendations? No, they don't. They do not. And it's because it's like, well, that's the expectation. Well, okay, but what's wrong with recognizing those things anyway? You mentioned earlier, John, how it's going to affect people. It's going to affect that individual that receives it, and it's on their wall. Well, it also affects their peers. They go, wow, Clint just got that accommodation for that. That's fantastic. I got to live up to that standard. personally, I have to live up to Clint's example that he just set. And he's not my boss. He's just a peer, but he did something that I'm not sure I would have done. But now I'm thinking about it going, yeah, I need to strive to be better. I want to be at that level. It inspires people around you. So yeah, I've seen both sides of it. It came down to individuals. Every supervisor is different. Just every manager, every regional man, everybody's different. But the ones that recognized, highlighting good work, they were looked upon in a different way. They were looked upon very positively as leaders because they're recognizing your good work. And let's face it, we all have egos. We all need that pat in the back now and then. Everybody needs that. And if you never get it, no matter what you do, that's not a good thing. It will strain you. I look back and say, well, I got recognized for a lot of things, but I can also tell you that in my top 5 things that I look at in my career that I did where I think it was way above and beyond, I got nothing. And there was no recognition of it. I didn't need it because my peers that I was with, we know what we did. We know what we did at that earthquake in 92. We know what we were doing crawling under a collapsed apartment building. We never got recognized for that. But it's okay. It's okay because among us, we knew and we could deal with that. But it's nice for managers to recognize it. It's good for the culture of the entire organization.
I think here's something too that's really great, Jack, and you brought up a really awesome point that we have found in the undercover research that I think it might be valuable to bring up. Everybody wants to be seen. Everybody does. Certain people, though, want to be seen in certain ways. Sometimes I would see leaders that it's like, we just do the company Christmas party. Everybody comes, they have a nice meal. We'll give you a little mug. You get a T-shirt. Merry Christmas. Like, that's nice, right? They didn't have to do that. It's better than nothing.
Yeah.
But we have found that if you want to get 100 times the investment in recognition, make that recognition about the individual and recognize them in a way that they want to be recognized. I talked about this in the book. There were a variation of several different ways when somebody felt seen that they would talk about. So I want to explain these because I think it might be valuable. Some people loved experiences. Experiences when it was like, I did something really cool and somebody came up and gave me baseball tickets to my favorite team game to take my wife to. Or someone gave me movie tickets. That's cool. I get to go do something outside of work that I like to do. An off-site thing with the team where we all go axe throwing. That's a cool experience. Experiences was one of those. Vocal praise was another one. Money is a part of it. Some people are like, listen, I don't need a trophy. I would prefer a $50 gift card to Amazon. Right? Money's a part of the equation, whether that's a bonus, whether that's a raise. Sometimes we can do that. Sometimes we can't. Others, it was flexibility and time off. Like, hey, take the day off. Or because of what you did, we want to give you a 3-day vacation. We want you to time off. Again, sometimes we can do it. Sometimes we can't. I'm just letting you know what people mentioned. Food was another thing. Taco Tuesdays, Chick-fil-A Fridays, bringing food into the office. And then the last thing was trophies and awards. Like, what's the Emmy Award on your team? What's that what's that thing that they put on their mantle that it represents something. So again, I think, some people in the public safety sphere, they don't want the trophy. Like, I don't need but a thank you's enough. Or, you know what, we don't need I don't need, the money necessarily. This is what we do. But God, you brought in food for me and my crew and my team. Thank you.
Yeah.
I've never heard someone's like, some of these bought us lunch. Like, how kind of horrible is that? So there's different ways to consider this. It's like, Okay, you don't want to give them an accommodation. All right, buy the guy's lunch. Like different ways. How, again, the focus, how do we get to the part about the person? How can we make recognition an individual experience? I think there's real value in that thought.
What you're describing as I read through your book was something I loved about your book. A lot of what you talk about is philosophical, but you also have questions and challenges at the end of each chapter.
Moments to matter.
It makes it actionable intelligence. And I think that's what, in public safety aviation, in particular law enforcement aviation, our goal is to develop actionable intelligence that we're providing to folks on the ground. And you did that in your book. And you talked about how it applies differently at different points in your career. You read it in day one as a leader. It might read different day one as compared to day 300 and, whatever.
Totally.
So I love that you have those calls to action and the challenges within your book. What you just described, those 4 different things, those are the actionable things that you can do as a leader to make it happen. So I love that part about it. The book was great.
Thank you to our sponsor, CNC Technologies. CNC Technologies, serving law enforcement, government, and military markets with tailored mission solutions, system training, and live 24/7 support with CNC.live platform. Explore more at cnctechnologies.com.
One thing I mentioned, John, that I'll add to that real quickly is the coolest part about your job as a leader is that it matters. The hardest part about your job as a leader is that it matters every day. So consistency is key, right? It's in the doing that things get done. And leadership is a constant effort of doing something every day. There is a gentleman, his name is James Lawrence. He's known as the Iron Cowboy. I wrote about it in the book. The dude's a monster. The guy ran 50 Ironmans in 50 days in 50 states. And then he just did the Conquer 100, where he ran 100 full distance triathlons in 100 consecutive days. Like, dude, it's crazy. And he's a dear friend of mine. We've spoken on stages many times together. And everybody always asks the question, how did you do it? How did you do the impossible? How did you take what was so difficult and literally physically just insane? And you did it. And he gives the same answer every time. And it's one of the reasons why I put that in my book. He said, I made the impossible possible because I got really good at doing small things consistently over a long period of time. Great leaders must become masterful at doing just small little things consistently over a long period of time. And that's how we change cultures. That's how we change these dynamics. And so these small little moments to master in the book, the hope is that over time, little by little, those efforts become a lot. And that's how we do this. So I'm glad you brought that up, John, because that was the hope, is that it wasn't just a book to read, but it was a guide to creating small, consistent moments that over a long period of time would change a culture.
You brought the quote that your mom said over the course of your life, and it makes me think about my youth and the things my mom used to say. And I remember rolling my eyes, when she'd say whatever the thing was that she'd say. And now as an adult, I hear what she said, and it rings true. So I would imagine, Clint, for you, that's got to be the same way.
Totally. I mean, my mom and my dad in those little moments, the Mr. Jensens, the Rod Farrells, the helicopter mentors, the people that have shaped who I am. My dad wrestled all my life. I was a wrestler for 8 years. The town that I grew up in is Heber City, Utah. It's literally known for nothing in this world except for wrestling. Like the greatest wrestler of all time graduated from my high school. His name is Kel Sanderson. The dude's a monster. If you're a wrestler, you know who Kel Sanderson is. The guy never lost a match in high school. He was never beaten in college. wrestled for Iowa State University, never lost. And then he went on to the Olympic Games in Athens, Greece, where he took gold. It's a machine. And every Friday night, my dad, like he shares, our moms, our dads, these iconic people in our lives and the things they teach us. And I remember every Friday night, he'd be like, come on, Clint, get in the truck. We're going to go watch Kel throw guys around on the mat like rag dolls. Let's go. And this one Friday night, I looked at my dad and I said, Dad, I just don't want to go. We go every Friday night. Like, I know Kel's going to dominate. I just don't want to go. And my dad, he looked at me and he said, I'll never make you go. But he said, I just have one question for you. He said, do you want to be a great wrestler? Do you want to really be good at what you do? And I said, yeah. I said, of course, Dad. He said, then you got to hang out by the mat. You want to be a great wrestler? You got to hang out by the mat. And it's the same within public safety. It's the same within, you want to be a great swimmer, you got to hang out by the pool. You want to be great at basketball, you got to hang out by the hoop. Growing up on a farm, I learned if you put a hard to catch horse in a field with an easy to catch horse, you're going to end up with two hard to catch horses. Right? Like that association that like, and it's kudos to what you are doing in this podcast. Right, you're creating a tribe. You're creating a place where people can come together. You're creating the mat, the hoop, the place where we can, like-minded individuals can come and we can learn from each other, and we can listen to the right people that still got it, and they're in it for the right reasons, and they want to build better people, and they want to build better families, and they want to create a better team and a place where people don't just survive in public safety, but they thrive. And so. Just again, what you mentioned, those things, they do ring true in my mind, and those little lessons that ultimately shape who we are. Who are you listening to, right? It's cool.
Yeah, you think about the folks you surround yourself with kind of the same way, right? Like that's saying if you want to do a good measure of who you are as a person, look at your friends, and that'll tell you everything you need to know. So I think as a leader, it's same rings true, right? Look at the people that you're influenced by, who motivates you, and that'll probably tell you who you are and what you're doing as a leader. I try and surround myself with people that are better than I am at everything, because I want to aspire to be like them.
Yep.
And
yep.
I think it's tough for a lot of people because ego gets involved, right? Ego is in the way of all of that. But like Terry Mouchy says, the best leaders check their ego at the door. And I think that's one of my favorite sayings from Terry. So, man, so much of this conversation has been amazing. So much of what you're saying, in the book and here in person resonates with me 100%. Jack, I know it does with you because we talked about it offline.
Yeah.
What are some of your thoughts?
Well, it's the first thing that hit me with your book, Clint, was that I knew that this was business oriented, and I learned almost instantly, no, it's not. It's people oriented. It is not. Yes, a lot of the examples are business related because of the Undercover Millennial. I get that, but every single thing you talked about applied to all of us.
Yeah.
As leaders or as people that are being led. It just, so much of it's just about being a good human and learning, continuously learning something new. And I learned a lot from your book. I really did. And it surprised me at how much I learned. I knew I'd learn something because you always learn something when you read a book, but it was really impressive how much I walked away from and how much I related to through, like I said, through my wife in retail. Oh my gosh. There were so many things where I went, oh, that's the regional manager from Pier 1 that she had, that was worthless and made her life miserable for, a year and a half. And she left. I mean, it was like everything you said was exactly the same. Sometimes in public safety, you can't leave, you can, but it's very challenging and difficult. You have a lot of time invested in pensions and all sorts of things.
Totally.
But if you're not happy, you're not a good employee. You're not doing your best. And so this leadership part, it's the reason that John feels this way, I feel this way, that it's such an important topic to discuss as often as possible. Just like mental wellness, it's another one of our high priorities. We try and talk about it as much as we can. Why? Because it's important. Like John mentioned, we have a couple friends, two that come to mind that are really quality human beings, incredible people, and they were incredible in their jobs in law enforcement aviation. And their leadership did not appreciate what they have. And I thought about this earlier. I want to ask you about that. Can you talk about, not appreciating what you have and why leaders lack that sometimes? And then they lose the people and go, oh my gosh, what happened?
Yeah.
We really liked him. Well, you didn't treat him very well. You didn't realize that you had this incredible pilot or person or SWAT officer or patrol officer, and you treated them poorly, and now you're shocked that they left.
Yep.
Can you talk about that for a minute, Clint?
Every employee has what's called a status. So working in the medical field, I worked in the operating room for a long time, and the doctor would call out often during surgery, hey, I need a status update. Give me a status check. What the doctor was really asking for is tell me the vital signs of the patient, right? Heart rate, respiratory rate, body temperature, blood pressure. Those are your 4 vital signs that determine whether you're living or not. We then would check the status of the patient. That would then determine how we would treat them. After we treated the patient, right, we reestablished blood pressure. We get their heart rate where it needed to be. What do you think we did after we treated the patient? Well, we would recheck the status. We would recheck the vitals. And then if we needed to treat them differently, we would do so. And we would continue that cycle until healthy stability was maintained long term. I think there's a really important lesson in that when understanding how important it is to understand the status of individuals. During 2020, world kind of fell apart. It was the great resignation. There was a lot of interesting dynamics that took place. And then all of a sudden it was then the great reentry, right? And this evolving dynamic of work and retention. It was really a unique time for us as researchers to dive into this world. This year, 2024, the stat that I've shared and share to this day when we go out and speak to companies. I share it with every organization, and I would share it on this podcast. And I would invite anybody that's a leader that's listening. I want you to think of 2 individuals on your team that you would consider your rock stars, like your best people that have been with you for a long time. They're loyal, they're committed, they're into it, they're engaged. They're just great team members. Like if they came to you and said, I'm leaving this industry, I'm doing something different, it would affect you. It would put you and your team in a hard spot. So once you think of those 2 people, I want to share with you a stat that is our statistic in 2024. And the statistic is a 61% stat. And it is this: 61% of the current workforce is actively looking for a new place to work right now. Wow. 61%. Meaning that if somebody's willing to offer them a better boss, a little more appreciation, an opportunity to grow, a chance to thrive, a mentor of sorts, they're gone. They're 61%, and they're actively looking right now. Like I'm tilling the dirt in another industry. I'm doing some hides. I'm trying to build up something else so that I can leave this. Now, whether or not that's true for you or your industry or for you and your team who's listening to this episode, I think it's worth considering. 61%. And now more than ever, we need really great leaders that have the ability to conduct what I call as a status interview. If you want to really know how your people feel, if you become the mentor in the story, that's first and foremost. Oftentimes, most of the time, they'll tell you. If you're really the mentor and you've created that kind of a dynamic, that kind of a relationship, they'll tell you. And what it requires is first psychological safety. So the individuals that you thought of, you would call them. You could pull them into your office. You could go on a walk with them. You could go to lunch with them. Whatever it is, you create a moment And in that meeting, you just give them vocal praise. You tell them how important they are, how significant they are, how much they mean to you, how much they matter on the team. And then I would challenge you to ask them these 3 questions. Number 1 is what can I do as your captain to keep you here? What can I do? What can I do to keep you here? I want to know. Second, what is getting in the way of your success at work? What's getting in the way? And third, what can I do as your captain, as your lieutenant, as your father, as your husband? What can I do to help you? What can I do? Can you see, Jack, like how, and John, like this is not just about leadership. Yeah. It's about fatherhood. It's about motherhood. It's about raising children. It's about being a good spouse, how do we create a dynamic where people thrive because of you? It's a relationship, an organization, a team that they want to be a part of. And those 3 questions, most of the time, most employees are never asked those 3 questions unless it's in the exit interview. When the employee walks up and says, listen, I can't do this anymore. I found a better opportunity. And it's then the captain goes, oh, come on, John, Jack, you've been with us for, like, what can we do to keep you here? Or,
it's too late.
It's too late. It's too late. You should have asked those questions 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And so my challenge is ask them now. And I know maybe some people listening to this might go, well, Clint, like, I know what they'll say. If I ask, like, they'll say, yeah, give me 20% increase in pay. Give me, only give me a better schedule. Give me better equipment. Give me a better team member. Then I'll stay. And some of us like, well, I can't do that, right? I can't pay them more. I can't, there's certain restrictions. What the status interview does, though, is it gives you the opportunity to talk about options. It gives you the opportunity to collaborate, to look for different chances for significance, success. And at the end of the day, if you do a status interview and that person and you just can't come to a conclusion, then at least you asked. At least you asked. That's your job as the leader. We have to understand the status of the people, of those that we lead, so that we can treat them better. And after we treat them, we tree check that status. And you continue that until healthy stability is maintained long term. The status interview is a beautiful way to understand the needs and the wants of your people right now.
Thank you to our sponsor, Robinson Helicopter Company, the choice for unrivaled safety and reliability so you can accomplish any mission with confidence. For more than half a century, Robinson has been at the forefront of the helicopter industry. From the R-22 to the R-66 turbine, Robinson makes helicopters accessible so more people can accomplish more missions. Climb higher. For additional information, visit www.robinsonheli.com.
To enhance that, Clint, I would say that, for instance, in police work and law enforcement aviation specifically, I agree with you 100%. Those interviews should be done. And I would just add that, all of those people that are in that interview that the captain calls in, they know that captain can't give them a 10%, 20% raise. They know that the captain is very limited on what they can do, but what they can do is work environment, safety culture. Those things are free. In many cases, they're free. Attitude towards employees. So I would say that, in business, there's a little bit more flexibility maybe with a boss that can say, I can give you 10%. I've been meaning to talk to you about it. But in police work, that's a negotiated contract that's way above the pay grade of a captain. However, there's a gazillion things that the captain can change.
That's right.
And those are the things that captain would hear from their their team. They would hear the things like, I know you can't change my schedule and I know you can't give me more pay, but the safety culture in here is lacking. We used to do this and now we're not doing that anymore. And that affects my safety, which affects my family, which affects my peers. So
bingo.
Even though it's different in the business world, maybe with some of it,
yep,
the core issues that affect my happiness and my safety, Many of them don't cost a dime and have nothing to do with a contract.
Yeah.
So I think that's I love what you said there. I hope leaders take that to heart, because you'll learn things that you may not even know are going on. Then 2 or 3 employees come in and say the same thing. You're going, oh, I didn't even realize I was doing that.
Yeah.
And they might change it and make things better. And now you have a happy employee.
And it puts you in the position of becoming an advocate. You become now an advocate instead of a boss. Now it's like, he got to the part about me. He's listening to me. He's going to bat for me. Like that's the motive. That's the goal.
One of the things that also came up real quick, John, that it's come up a bunch of times in my head since we've been talking is, I heard this just the other day, how the military is really struggling with their numbers, just like police departments. And they all scratch their heads and I can't imagine what it is. Well, we all know what it is. It has to do with morale things. It's not about money. It's not about that. It's about leadership. It's about morale. It's about things like that. And one of the things that I heard the other day was, who are the best recruiters? I mean, in organizations like the military and police work, who are the best recruiters? Well, in police work, it's cops. You don't have to have a recruiting section. If you're doing a great job up above, your cops are going to recruit the next generation of cops. That isn't happening right now. Why? Because cops aren't nearly as happy as they used to be. Not even close. Same thing in the military. Who are the best recruiters? Somebody that's in the Army going to telling their nephew or their cousin, wow, I really love it here. You should consider when you graduate coming to the Army. Man, I really am happy here. And here's why. I do get to do these things. And when I'm done, I'm going to get to go to college. I mean, that's not happening right now. So your best recruiters, lack of a better term, are pissed off. And they're not happy campers. So they're not recruiting. And what happens? Recruitment goes down. It's a common theme. And I'm sure it's true in business too. I'm absolutely positive it's true in business. Your best recruiter should be your employees.
100%. 100%.
Yeah. And going back to Terry Malchi, and this, Clint, goes to what you're saying with checking in with your folks. He advocates asking your employees, what do you need? What do you need? What do you want? And what makes you mad? Yeah. Basically the same thing that you're asking, but I love it in that way. A lot of things make police officers angry.
Long list.
But asking the question, a lot of times the things that make you angry are your barriers to success. And that's what you're talking about. It's the thing that kind of inhibits your ability to get ahead. Yeah. And those simple check-ins, again, going back to simplicity, doesn't have to be a sit-down annual review type situation. Like you said, it could be a walk outside. It could be a phone call. Totally. It could be a text. Hey, well, maybe not a text, but the idea is that a simple conversation, goes a long ways, and it lets that person know that you're thinking about them. And like you said, you matter, and I think as an employee, that's what you want to know. You want to know that you matter and that you're an integral part of that team.
Because if you're angry, you're one of the 61%. Right? I mean, you just are. You're always looking.
Yep. And I guess the last point I'll bring up, and it's kind of wraps up kind of the whole conversation, and the need for us to develop this culture within our workplace. It makes you want to stay there. I love it here. That mentality, I think for my generation, Jack's generation, and the generations that preceded us, our industry was one that you stayed in for 30 years. It's almost like blood in, blood out. It isn't that way anymore. It's hard to believe. People are foregoing pensions. They're foregoing all the benefits of a service career because of the culture, because of the new generation, the new way of thinking. I think you're dead on with that 60% stat. I think probably 60% of law enforcement, public safety, they're like, well, I could do something different. What is something different? So I do think it applies to our industry just like it does to the market as a whole.
I agree.
So I just, man, I love everything that you've talked about, Clint. The book, if you have not read the book, it's a must read. This is one to go back to. I keep talking about establishing a Hangar Z reading list, and the day I do, this is going to be in the top of that list because this is great. So I want to thank you for taking the time to build this. I know writing a book is not easy. It takes a lot of time, and Jack knows that too. Jack wrote a book himself.
It's a lot of work.
And I failed English, so it made it even harder.
But thank you for all the ways you're influencing people. You know, going back to what you wanted to do as a kid, you wanted to fly and you wanted to help people, and here you are doing that. You know, if you're in a position where Clint can come to your agency, your company, to lead, to be a keynote speaker, man, I don't think you could ever go wrong. You know, based on what I know, what I see, having him come out. So, Clint, thank you. Before we close out, any closing thoughts, Clint, and then we'll go to Jack.
I just thank you to you both, and thank you to everybody that's listening for who you are and what you do. I think sometimes when we talk about leadership, you know, even I'm cautious of this at times where you can walk away feeling like you're not enough, and maybe the closing thought is to let the listener that's listening to this episode just an idea and a thought to let you know that you're doing better than you think you are. You're doing better than you think you are. And yes, are there opportunities for improvement? Yeah, maybe you're the controller and we could move towards being the mentor. Maybe you're a little bit more removed and we need to get back and engage a little bit. You know, maybe I haven't, done a status interview for a while. Like, yeah, there's all those things, but also at the same time, like, you're probably doing better than you think you are. And even the thought of realizing that I need to do a little bit more is kudos to you and the efforts that you do. It's an amazing calling to truly be a leader, to become an individual of impact where somebody lives a better story because of you. And there are times when, as a leader, you feel like your efforts are just a drop in the bucket, but at least it's a drop in the bucket. And that over time, little by little, those efforts matter. You matter. The moments matter. And thank you for who you are and what you do. And to John and Jack, it's an honor. I consider you friends. And it was truly a highlight of my day to be on here. And I hope I get to see you again soon. And maybe one day we'll go flying. I would love it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That'd be great.
Absolutely love that. Yeah.
That would be great.
Keep going back to the little by little. Man, it resonates with me in a big way. I love that you bring that up. And so, man, that's great. Jack?
This has been wonderful. Clint, thank you so much for joining us. I just have another quote that I wrote down that I have to just mention that I really liked. Fighting the smoke, not the flames. Yes, you need to get rid of the smoke if you want to breathe, but the smoke will be there until the fire is put out. And I think that's so important, especially in law enforcement, that, find out what the core issue is, the core problem, and you won't have to deal with that smoke if you solve the core issue. Many times it's right in front of our faces and we just don't see it. And I think leaders need to look outside and go read a book or go to a seminar or go to the internet and watch some people that are talking about leadership. We can all learn, no matter what our job is, but leadership, there's a lot of sources out there about leadership. And I think some leaders they're happy with the status quo, and some are maybe lazy. They just don't want to expand their knowledge, and they just don't realize how many people they're hurting, and so that comes back to the mentorship part of your philosophy, is how important that is. So I hope everybody walks away today with some additional information that they can use, whether they're in a leadership position or not, because we said it earlier, we're all in leadership positions in law enforcement, particularly. Everybody is, but be a leader, set the example, be a mentor, and then if you do promote and go up the ranks, that's great. But keep doing those things. There's so much value in your words and in your writing, Clint. And I'm thankful that Wes hooked John and you up, and that we got to chat today, and I got to read that book. I feel very fortunate to do that. I'm better today having talked to you and read this. So
thank you.
I will try to do my best to live up to that. So Clint, thank you. And the day will come. We'll come fly with you maybe in a Hill helicopter. You never know.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Okay, sounds
Amazing.
great, Clint. Thank you.
Thanks, you too.
All right. Well, until next time, we'll catch you later. Cheers. Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Hangar Z podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe to hear more stories that promote the personnel and equipment behind the missions in public safety aviation. Lastly, stand by for a message after a word from our sponsors. Cheers. Thank you to our sponsor, Metro Aviation. Metro Aviation, the world's largest family-owned aeromedical operator, offers comprehensive aircraft services with 160 plus aircraft in over 25 states. The Completion Center installs medical and law enforcement kits and avionics, serving diverse aviation needs including offshore, utility, VIP, and corporate sectors.
Thank you to our sponsor, CNC Technologies. CNC Technologies, serving law enforcement, government, and military markets with tailored mission solutions, system training, and live 24/7 support with CNC.live platform. Explore more at cnctechnologies.com. Thank you to our sponsor, Robinson Helicopter Company, the choice for unrivaled safety and reliability so you can accomplish any mission with confidence. For more than half a century, Robinson has been at the forefront of the helicopter industry. From the R-22 to the R-66 turbine, Robinson makes helicopters accessible so more people can accomplish more missions. Climb higher. For additional information, visit www.robinsonheli.com.
Thank you for tuning into this leadership series of the Hangar Z podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicast and in partnership with Vertical Valor Magazine. We hope you enjoyed our conversation on effective leadership with Emmy Award winner Clint Pulver. His insights on the transformative power of mentorship and the importance of fostering genuine connections in the workplace are invaluable, especially in the realms of public safety and aviation. As Clint highlighted, it's crucial to recognize that employees often leave their bosses rather than their jobs, emphasizing the need for leaders who prioritize positivity, recognition, and personal connection. Investing in your team and cultivating a supportive culture can significantly enhance employee retention and engagement. Also, don't forget to read I Love It Here and check out Heli Life, their apparel brand that Clint proudly represents. Their commitment to designing high-quality gear for helicopter professionals is amazing. As a thank you for being part of our Hangar Z community, you can visit helilife.shop and use the promo code HangarZ, all one word, to receive 15% off your first order. Cheers.